Let's see if I can get lucky on heroes. Hmm. Okay, so it is working. Okay. Mm-mm. Let's just jam for a little bit, I think.
Holy one, holy water, drink enough till you're under. Take it slow, take it farther if you want to surrender. This won't take long, and soon you might feel numb. This won't take long, you'll want another. Stay asleep and blame everyone for nothing's ever good enough. You can escape the weight of losing everything you love. You have to break the chain and tell yourself you're good enough. So take me back to the start, when everything was better. I don't wanna say that I'm lost, 'cause it gets worse and it gets better.
Good. But I got the super surprise on a Tuesday.
Slowly begun, and the violence caused such silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they're all fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are quiet. Another head slowly. Slowly they go, and the violence caused such silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they're all fighting. And they're bombs, and they're bombs, and they're guns. In your head, they're all
Problem in as the law. Yes, son.
We must be mistaken. It's the same old team since 1916. In your head, they're still fighting with their tanks and
Can't play with that one right now. Mommy's working. How about that one isn't open like that? Evil thoughts. Yeah, it would have been bad for him, too.
This species shall suffer.
heavy, we'll heal immortal. But he can't protect everyone. But he can now. What happened? What's going on? Oh, that didn't work out for us, unfortunately.
slowly begun, and the violence caused such silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying. Another heading slowly, tried it slowly, they go. And the violence caused such silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying. In your head, zombie, what's in your head? In your head, zombie. Another mother's breaking, heart is taking over. When the violence causes silence, we must be mistaken. It's the same old team since 1916. In your head, they're still fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they're all dying. Another heading slowly, tried it slowly, they go. And the violence caused such silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying. Hate to love it, hate to love the way you keep me burning, burning for your touch when you don't give it to me only when you need it. I know you need it, but when you come my way, put it all on me, but you never stay. Ain't going home tonight, unless you come with me. Oh nana, oh nana, oh nana, oh nana, oh nana. Don't say goodbye, bye, 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 bye. Stay one more night, 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 night. You make it
It's not
right.
going good.
Don't say goodbye. Don't say goodbye, bye, bye, bye. Stay one more night, 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 night. You make it right. Don't say goodbye. Love me wanting something by me craving, get you going. A taste in every space that we're alone in. And tease me on the dance floor till the morning, yeah, till the morning. But when you come my way, put it all on me, but you never stay. Ain't going home tonight, unless you come with me. Oh nana, oh nana. Don't say goodbye, bye, 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 bye. Stay one more night, 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 night. You make it right. Don't say goodbye. Don't say goodbye, bye, bye, bye. Stay one more night, 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 night. You make it right. Don't say goodbye.
I hate it. Unfortunate game, but tis what it is, and I think I duck here. Yeah.
Timide, les mains toutes abîmées, tailler la pierre, fils d'ouvrier. Il en était fier, et pourquoi vous riez? Non, ne le jugez pas, vous qui ne connaissez pas les vertiges et la peur. Vous êtes faussement heureux, vous troquez vos valeurs. Lui, il est au moment. Bien plus que ça, seul je crie son nom quand vient le désarroi. Et puis tout s'effondre quand il n'est plus là. qu'arriver. Depuis qu'il est parti, je n'ai pu me relever. N'est plus qu'un souvenir, une larme du passé, coincée dans mes yeux, qui ne veut plus s'en aller. On n'oublie pas, vous qui me connaissez pas, les vertiges et la douleur, ils sont superficiels, ils ignorent tout du cœur. Lui, c'était tout mon monde, et bien plus que ça. J'espère le revoir là-bas dans l'au-delà. Aidez-moi, tout s'effondre puisqu'il n'est plus là. C'est-tu mon bel amour, mon beau soldat, que tu me fais tourner dans le vide, vide, tourner dans le vide, vide, tourner dans le vide. Tu m'as fait tourner dans le vide, 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 tourner, tourner dans le vide, tourner dans le vide. Il m'a fait tourner. Tell me all your secrets and tell me what you want. I'll be here forever. Give me a little bit of just a touch. Tell me all your stories, the ones that are in the dark. I'll be here forever. Give me a little bit of just a touch. Moonshine to the stars. Take my time and take my heart. Yeah, drive by. kiss me through the phone. I wanna feel it all. You know I'm sleeping all alone. Just hit me through the phone. I wanna hear it all. Tell me all your secrets and tell me what you want. I'll be here forever. Give me a little bit of just a touch. Tell me all your stories, the ones that are in the dark. I'll be here forever. Give me a little bit of just a touch.
There's no going back, Trump says. He shares text messages from world leaders, and he vows no going back on Greenland. And the reason why? National security. I'll break it down for you in the simplest of ways. Greenland technically is a member of NATO, but only through Denmark. There's very minimal capacity to defend it. They sent like 20 troops there, which I think already came back. There's 56,000 people. And in the event Russia or China makes a move on Greenland, ain't nobody's going to be prepared. Now, because it is part of Denmark, this theoretically could trigger Article 5. But more importantly, right now is the opportunity to gain control of the Northwest Passage. And Donald Trump very much wants to control all of these sea routes. He doesn't want to create an opportunity for Russia, China, or any other rival nation to gain control of one of the main waterways, which would break down one of the means by which America controls the world. The American World Police. We make sure that international trade stays stable. We also make sure everybody uses the U.S. dollar. But control of these sea routes has been principal for U.S. control of things. With the melting of the ice around the North Pole, the Northwest Passage has opened up, allowing for trade routes in this area. And there is no controlling factor except Russia, largely, because they have access. Now, Trump has talked about Canada and wanting access as well. It's for the same reason. Canada says no. So Trump looks at Greenland. There's an excellent point being made on X where someone said the 50,000 people who live in Greenland will not stop the United States from protecting these passages and shoring up the defenses of the region. Will Chamberlain says they're not going to stop the security architecture of the United States. Well, Donald Trump has leaked text messages from world leaders and vows no going back. Of course, the left is apoplectic for some reason, which makes literally no sense. Okay, look, all I can say is they hate America. Okay, Donald Trump saying we want to negotiate the purchase or acquisition of Greenland is nothing. Now, the interesting thing is that Denmark is gearing up and has been for some time to release Greenland to its own volition for some time, with some predictions saying it could be maybe 10 years. And if that's the case, Russia's going to come in and they're going to say, we'll give you whatever you want. Was that a Russian or was that a German? I don't know.
Because the longer history stretches,
I don't know. Maybe I can't do a Russian accent.
China will catch up.
And they're going to say, sure, Trump wants to go in now before that happens while they're still in NATO. But the European countries are losing their minds over a landmass they're not going to control anyway.
Also,
here's a story from NBC News.
Reason for China,
Trump shares texts from leaders and vows no going back on Greenland.
Probably do.
The president shared a private message from France's Emmanuel Macron, part of a flurry of activity as he added new fuel to his clash with Europe over the Arctic territory. He's threatened to tariff these countries. I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. That's what Emmanuel Macron told Trump in a private message. The message Trump posted overnight on Truth Social was part of a flurry of activity as Trump insisted there was no going back in his campaign to seize the semi-autonomous Danish territory. He also posted a text from the head of NATO, accused Britain of stupidity. But Trump did add a glimmer of diplomacy, announcing he would meet with various parties about Greenland on the sidelines of the week's World Economic Forum in Davos. Trump promised the event would be very interesting, telling reporters late Monday he did not expect his European allies to push back too much on his Greenland ambitions. In a brief telephone interview with NBC News earlier, Trump wouldn't say whether he would use force to seize the Arctic island. He was speaking after his own text was made public, in which he warned Europe that he no longer feels, quote, the obligation to think purely of peace, linking his bid to seize the island to his failure to win the Nobel Peace Prize. There you go, Trump. Danish soldiers during shooting practice at an undisclosed location in Greenland on Sunday. Look at that. Hours later, Trump was posting the text from Macron, in which the French leader addressed him as my friend. A source close to Macron told NBC News on Tuesday the private message was shared by Trump were genuine. Despite the more jovial tone, the source said that French leader's position was consistent in public and private. According to the screenshot shared by Trump, Macron said that he was in line with his American counterpart on Syria and Iran, but did not see his reasoning on Greenland. He also said that he could call a meeting of the heads of the leading industrialized nations in Paris this week and offered to dine with Trump in the French capital. Trump also shared friendly texts from Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, an alliance whose existence has been brought into question by Trump's threats. I think it's all big ask, to be completely honest. Trump says, I will pull from NATO, I will take Greenland, because he wants them to know he's serious, and then you negotiate down from there. I am committed to finding a way forward on Greenland, Rutte wrote, calling Trump Dear Donald, appearing to compliment his actions in Syria, Gaza, and Ukraine. NATO's press office told NBC News that it would issue a comment if it had anything to say on the matter. Trump said earlier on Truth Social that he had a very good call with Rutte concerning Greenland and that he agreed to the meeting in Davos. Quote, there can be no going back. On that, everyone agrees. Rutte's appointment as NATO chief was viewed as part of European effort to curry favor with Trump. But the president's ratcheting threats after his daring attack on Venezuela have led to growing questions about that strategy. World leaders have to take it into account that Trump might post their private messages to him in public. Dutch Foreign Minister David Van Wiel told NBC News. We get it. Here's one of the better points. There's two tweets I want to show you. This is from Steve Loftus. He is a dad, a husband, center right. He says, first, let me be clear that Trump is a moron. But the Greenland issue has been brought on Denmark by their own actions. Denmark has spent a decade loosening its control of Greenland. It's now at the point where independence for Greenland is imminent. This would mean Greenland would be a huge resource-rich country on the USA's doorstep with a population of just 56,000, no military, and outside NATO. China or Russia could take it in a minute, or more likely gain influence via other means. Yeah, so while Trump's rhetoric is the usual mix of heavy-handed and tone-deaf, there's a genuine issue of Denmark's making. He goes on to clarify, Greenland is currently in NATO but would not be if independent because they have no military resources which you need to join NATO. How would China or Russia invade Greenland? Really? They'd walk in. Independence is not decades away. The current government are massively increasing mining with the aim of replacing the current funding they get from Denmark. It's certainly possible in the next 5 to 10 years. One person says Iceland is in NATO and has no military. He says Iceland was a founding member, not a new applicant. But most importantly, they aren't in Europe, which NATO requires. That's interesting. And then we have this from Will Chamberlain. He said exactly, 50,000 Greenlanders will not get the right to control a massive island's place in global security architecture. He's not wrong. Imagine if we said, we, the United States, will not negotiate the purchase or acquisition or certain rights in Greenland because the liberals are losing their minds. Do you think China and Russia have the same constraints? The autocratic regime in Russia, Vladimir Putin, he's going to walk right in and do whatever he wants. China, the Communist Party, they're going to walk right in and do whatever they want. Now, China is largely moving on Canada, training troops there, and Trump's pissed about it. But again, it's all about control of the Northwest Passage, a new trade route which is going to disrupt the U.S.'s ability to control trade. And then the U.S. falters. Trump is taking this view of everything as we are no longer going to sit back and sell off our assets to China and watch them take over. One theory that I've had for some time. Let me show you this from the BBC. Greenland will stay Greenland, former Trump advisor declares. Interesting. One theory that I've had for years now is that the powers that be it the Davos Group, the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, Liberal Economic Order, whatever you want to call it, they fear something called Thucydides' trap. That is, historically, there's a trend when a dominant economic power is supplanted by a lesser economic power on the rise, war tends to break out. There are 16 historical moments tracked as it pertains to Thucydides' trap, 12 of which resulted in war. The fear then is that as the U.S. stagnates and China's rapidly expanding, this economic shift will likely lead to World War III. So, one theory that I had hypothesis is that the powers that be said, let's intentionally shift as many resources as possible from the U.S. to China so that the shift is so dramatic, war can't happen. The American people can spit and yell all they want, but they will be too weak too quickly. It appears that's what was happening. China was on the rise, ascendant, and the U.S. was faltering. No. To be fair, both countries are growing, but China was growing much more rapidly. Now, it's currently the U.S. is above China, but the predictions were around, like 2030, maybe 2080 or something. 2030 or 2038, not 2080. China would take over as the dominant global economic force. You will then live in a Chinese communist, unipolar structured world. You don't want that, trust me. You will have your laptops will cost you $4,000.
They got
minimum grade laptop, which
plenty
right now
of
costs you
counterforming.
$300. Imports are going to cost you way too much, and you're going to be subservient, and you're going to be making 50 cents an hour. It's going to be miserable. Look at how the Chinese peasants work today, committing mass suicide at factories. You don't want that. You don't. We don't want war, but it appears that when Trump got in, he said, absolutely not. The USA will remain the dominant power and will reverse course. And that's what he's been doing. The things that have degraded the United States, like low fertility rates, abortion, open border immigration, Trump is saying no to these things. And the end result is clear. Moving on Greenland, forcing NATO to pay their bills. Trump is saying the United States is the center of this planet and will remain the center of this planet. And
I
he's
hate
going
when
to
that
let
happens.
anyone else shut us down. And of course, the fear is World War III, which we have seen and everyone and their grandmother has been warning about. Maybe it comes.
Yep.
But I'm going to tell you, Trump's gambit is, I would rather stare down World War III than let the United States fall. So what say you? Would you agree? The U.S. loses its position as the dominant power. Your standard of living drops precipitously. You can no longer afford imported items. So you live a much more humble life. A lot of people would say that's fine. Get some chickens and some goats and go live on a farm and smile. Some people would say no. We built and we will maintain and we will not let anyone take it from us. That seems to be Trump's view. But you tell me what you think. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you've ever met. Follow me on X and Instagram at TimCast. Stay tuned, more to come, and we'll see you all in the next segment.
He was just sleeping there when suddenly flames shot out of his freaking head. I've got more fun facts like this to drop later.
It is time for some more Salmonella Academy. Specifically, Pliny explains it all, the Historia Naturalis from ancient Rome. Back then, they split atoms using really small hammers. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tyler Folse. I'm a nuclear engineer with a little over 10 years of experience in the commercial nuclear power industry. From engineering operations to emergency response. I'm going to know everything there is nuclear, but I can certainly share some knowledge. Let's check this out. 1 and 2.
Hey, persons of age. So, long
Persons of age.
before the era of the wiki, there used to be these things called encyclopedias, where for a small fee of thousands of dollars, they would mail you a tiny fraction of the knowledge we have access to today, and you could put it on a shelf, and it would sit there and make you look learned. But while not reading an encyclopedia is easy, not creating one is much easier. And yet,
In a nuclear power plant, there's basically still like encyclopedias of procedures, emergency response guides, fire response pre-plans for every single room in the plant, applicable laws and regulations. Yeah. Going through licensed operator training, you actually had to memorize a fair bit of it. But then after you got your qualification, then you could look stuff up. While you can search stuff through an online database on the intranet, a lot of times you would still fumble through what seemed like encyclopedias.
yet we do it. Encyclopedia Britannica is still in circulation today, and it's maintained by around 100 full-time editors and more than 4,000 contributors. So whose idea was this? Who was the first person to sit down and say, today I feel like writing down everything? To answer that, we must look nearly
Sleek.
2,000 years in the past, to the mid-70s AD. Pliny the Elder, author, philosopher, veteran, imperial administrator,
lot of hands.
and one curious buckaroo. Early in his life, Pliny's father took him to Rome to study law. Then, as a young adult, he spent several years as a junior officer in the Roman military. His interest in literature made him a few high-ranking friends there, and when he came home, he took to writing. Unfortunately, a certain apocryphal fiddler was in charge at the time, who wasn't exactly kind to intellectuals. So Pliny kept it on the DL, mostly writing about things like grammar and rhetoric, which at the time few people found worth freaking freaking out over. Fortunately, in June of 68, Nero finally took a hint and killed himself, and following the chaos of the Year of the Four Emperors, one Vespasian came out on top. Vespasian was a general and a friend of Pliny's, so when he became emperor, he promoted Pliny to procurator, which was like the governor of a province. Suddenly, with this guy on the throne and a cushy job to pay the bills, Pliny found himself in a position to make complete use of his own potential. By day, he continued his administrative duties, but during nights, he wrote. And over the course of a few years, with nothing but his own wits and whatever authors he could get his hands on, he created a work known as the Historia Naturalis. This consisted of 37 books, each broken up into many dozens of chapters, covering just about every topic there is. While it wasn't quite an encyclopedia in the modern sense, it's still the earliest surviving attempt at an all-encompassing scholarly work, and it is a trip. I've been reading it. It is fascinating, not only as a reflection of what people did and did not know in the Roman Empire, but also as a reflection of Pliny himself, who is a character and who made zero attempt to hide it. So today I come to you with
bit of more of editorialization here. Okay, yeah.
with a brief summary of the first part of a brief summary of all human knowledge according to one dude circa 77 AD. Now the original thing makes for a fairly long read, even removing most of the more uninteresting details. I've only managed to fit the first 2 books into today's video. As for the other 35, we'll see. I'm gonna let Pliny do the narration himself using my voice. He gets a lot of things shockingly right and a lot shockingly wrong. Rather than constantly chiming in with fact checks, I'm just gonna throw chess.com analysis icons in the corner for every claim he makes. I'll also provide relevant snippets of the actual text I'm paraphrasing just for reference. If you're one of the people who likes to pause the video just to see the funny ha-has I snuck into the freeze frame, rest assured there will be none today. You can just let it play. One last warning, while there is a loose overall structure to this thing, it also seems like Pliny just kind of wrote whatever was in his head for a given chapter. He has a habit of jumping back and forth between completely disparate topics and going on weird personal tangents in between. I am presenting this thing in the exact order it's written, so if it at any point seems utterly scatterbrained, it's his fault, not mine. Anyway, take it away. Yo.
There you go. I mean, dedication, sure.
Right, let me get right ahead of things. These books are strictly about this world and the things we can see around it. If you're one of those madmen who think there are other worlds beyond this one, give it a rest, alright? That's psychotic. You can't know these things, and you can't grasp infinity. Stop trying, you'll hurt yourself. So the heavens are
I mean, it's more of a mathematical concept, true infinity. I mean, in terms of nuclear engineering, with things with extremely long half-lives, such as uranium-238 having a half-life of about 5 billion years, so longer than the Earth's been around, for most practical engineering purposes, it might as well be infinity. And I guess you could say the same thing about certain decay chains that have similarly long half-lives within each individual step. There's also something known as K-infinity, or the infinite multiplication factor, which represents the ratio of neutrons produced to neutrons lost in an ideal infinitely sized reactor. Obviously that doesn't exist, but here you're just determining if your reactor is sized that even if it was infinite in size, if it could even start a reaction. Infinity just shows up as a way to bound things rather than an actual concept. So, okay, try not to think too hard about it. Fine.
Perfect sphere, and they spin around us perfectly. It takes 24 hours for them to do one spin, which is actually really fast because the universe is huge. In fact, massive objects all whooshing around us this fast should be incredibly loud at all times. Why isn't this the case? The whole shebang is composed of 4 elements, right, which sort themselves by weight. Earth is heaviest, so it falls to the middle of everything, into a sphere, and it stays still.
Okay, I mean, there's some discussion on gravity in there.
Only still thing. On top of that is water, then air, and fire's the lightest, which is why the sun and stars are made of it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Sun kicks ass. Easily the best of the 7 things up there. Basically,
It's a thumbs up. The sun is the best thing. Sure, it's the significant source of energy within our solar system. That's, yeah, awesome.
God. Not literally. Don't try to answer questions about God's nature, by the way. You'll just confuse yourself. There's at most one God, and he's everything, and he doesn't do weird human shit like getting jealous or banging other gods. I swear, people just make up new gods every time they want something specific. Let me tell you, there was a temple on Palatine Hill dedicated, through my tax dollars by the way, to fever. Like, the illness. You understand that's batshit, right? Things like that are why we've got more gods than people at this point.
Well, we
Folks
hear
in
that
other
that's more
countries
cowboy.
worship animals and obscene things like stinking meats. There are gods of theft and other crimes. It's all folly. You want to be godly? Just help others. That's the way of the old Roman nobles, and that's the way of the noblest noble of all, Emperor Vespasian Augustus, who may or may not be my best buddy. But anyway, if there is a god, he doesn't care about what you do. People put crazy emphasis on the religion, avoiding foods, worrying themselves sick about all kinds of sacred
Stepping
rules.
off.
Look, I hang around the Capitol. There's a lot of rat bastards in politics, real scumbags, and they are thriving. You don't need to torture yourself. Have a bacon. Nobody gives a shit. Back to the stars, which, by the way, also don't give a shit about you
I love it. Yeah, he goes on a rant, and now we're going back to space. That's awesome.
specifically. For big history-changing stuff, yeah, they'll act up, but you, reader, do not need to worry. Anyway, most of them are fixed in a sphere really high up there. We'll call this the heavens.
Fixed. Yes. No movement. Nothing beyond our solar system. All right. It is funny though, just what people thought of back then, and I can see how this can cause some craziness. But hey, at least there's some curiosity involved.
Between the heavens and the earth, there are 7 other bodies to talk about. Highest up there, we got Saturn, then there's Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon.
Okay, the one's small enough that you can see, sure. Or the one's close enough that you can see. Not gonna see Neptune or any dwarf planets there, let alone the whole Pluto controversy. When I was a kid, Pluto was a planet, but now it's just a dwarf planet. Again, back to the sun being fire. I mean, it's hot plasma. They probably would have perceived it as fire or something fire adjacent if talking about plasma, or let alone what causes it, that being nuclear fusion. So it's interesting to see with what they thought of the universe with what resources they had.
Heavens spin to the right, all these guys spin to the left. Saturn is cold, Mars is hot, but Jupiter's just right. The Sun
Jupiter actually has a massive radiation belt. That's because of its ginormous magnetic field, second only to that of the sun in our solar system. But it's essentially synchrotron radiation, so high-speed charged particles such as electrons spinning through Jupiter's magnetic field, and can cause a fair bit of dose on spacecraft that pass by. It can scramble some electronics. It can mess with electronics, even potentially cause arcs. Something that probe being sent to Europa is going to need to be aware of. Also, Europa has a pretty high surface dose rate. You probably can't survive being on there for more than a day, and even then, that's pushing it. And I'm talking about radiation. I'm assuming you have a spacesuit and everything.
Sun's orbit is made up of 360 degrees, 1 degree per day, except not quite. We have to add 5 1/4 days or else our sundials break. Down to Venus and Mercury, these guys are weird because they like to hang around the sun. Fun fact, Venus is actually bright enough to help out the sun and moon sometimes. When it's helping the sun, we call it Lucifer, the light bringer. And when it's helping the moon, we call it Vesper, the sleepy time guy. Mercury tries to do the same thing, but he's much more lame and
I also never knew of Lucifer in that context. I mainly think of Lucifer as what turned into Satan.
cringe, so we can't. The moon's got phases, as you know, and she gets closer and farther away at different times. And Daimion figured out lots of cool info about the moon's orbit, and you assholes bullied him for it. Yeah, this man unraveled the secrets of the universe, and in return, everyone goes, ho ho ho, he's in love with the moon. That's because humans are sick in the head. They'd rather read stories about bloodshed and massacres like that matters more than the fabric of reality. Get a clue. Anyway, the moon has phases because of the way it borrows light from the sun, which might be what these other guys do too, we don't know yet. All those spots on it are actually puddles because it likes to draw up moisture from the earth, which is where we get the tides. And every
Okay, so he knew about the tides, and you think, okay, it just yoinks the water. All right. It's an interesting idea, but I guess the water just poofs from the Earth to the moon. You don't see like water columns extending all the way up there.
now and then it casts its shadow on Earth. We call these eclipses, and they are freaking wicked. Eclipses can happen the other way around too, and the way these happen prove that the moon is bigger than the Earth and the sun's way bigger than both of them. Oh, and just so we're clear.
Really? Okay. The moon being bigger than the Earth. All right. I don't think I've actually heard that one from any historic or conspiracy theory for that one.
Eclipses are a natural thing. It's not the apocalypse or God's wrath. They follow rules. Even the Greeks could predict them. Settle down. Back to the planets. They're all kind of in the same belt up there. And they all get farther and closer to us at different points because their orbits are complicated. They mostly follow the same
I mean, sure, elliptical orbits, yeah.
rules as each other, but there's some goofiness, like the ones further than the sun move the slowest when they're the farthest away from us, but
I mean, that's gravity, orbital mechanics. I mean, there's I guess you can just watch and track them.
Closer ones move the quickest then. We can chalk this up to the sun-emitting vapors that must push them around in weird
Okay.
ways. Thunderbolts come from Jupiter.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
And we don't know why.
Wasn't Jupiter the... Okay, is that one of those self-fulfilling things? Because, like, Jupiter or Zeus, king of the gods, lightning bolts, or did they think that's where they came from, so that's why they called that planet Jupiter? I thought they called it just because it was the big one. Huh. I'm not sure about that one.
One theory is that it's because Saturn is very moist and Mars is very fiery, and when they meet in the middle, we get celestial fire thrown down at us. Same reason a wet log crackles and throws off embers in a fire.
Crazy.
There is a type of star that
Yeah.
moves around and vanishes. We call these comets, and they come in all kinds of flavors. These might actually be omens. I mean, there have been some weird coincidences. Some people think comets are permanent, and
Interesting talking about aliens. I mean, I know the original text, yeah, but still. Aliens. Not, you know, gods or goddesses or what have you, but we're just going to use the word aliens.
we only see them when they swing by the right way, while others say they're just flare-ups of celestial vapor that
tails
dissipate
go
on their
away from
own.
the sun.
Now to talk about some real anomalies, things we've only rarely seen. The sun goes dim sometimes, like when Caesar got killed. Matter of fact, during the Civil War with Mark Antony, it stayed dim for like a year. Multiple suns have been seen at the same time.
I mean, are we talking about refraction of sunlight through ice crystals in the atmosphere, creating an illusion or something? Kind of like how neutron flux can spread in a core, light can potentially refract and scatter, though I'm wondering if Pliny was ever in a climate or region that had that sort of effect. I don't know, or if he's just completely out to lunch on this one. It wouldn't look like that though. either way. Hence the double question mark amateur analysis right here. Yeah.
On several occasions, but no more than 3. 3's the record. Same with moons. One time a burning shield darted across the sky, throwing sparks as it went. Another
UFOs.
time someone saw a shooting star fly towards us
UFOs.
until it was as big as the moon, and then it turned around and went back.
An ominous appearance at the end that was seen once only. That is amazing. Once only. It will never be seen again.
To being a normal comet. Side note, even the translator was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Finally, there are the stars Castor and Pollux. If you see both of them, it's good luck, but be advised, if one's alone, he turns into a little bastard. He can and will come down and set your boat on fire. That's the celestial sphere taken care of. Now let's move down a peg to the air. The air ends
I don't even... This is amazing.
way before the moon, and it mixes with water vapor to create the weather. The sun dries up water on the earth, it goes
Like the air goes all the way up to the moon, so you could breathe. I mean, okay, that's at least consistent with the whole thing of the water, of the moon taking the water with the tides. There's at least some consistency there if the moon's somehow in the atmosphere. Man, if Earth's atmosphere was that big, well, the pressure would be so high, I don't think Earth would be inhabitable anymore. Though, the moon would benefit from some increased radiation shielding from the atmosphere, so you'd be better off living on the moon.
up and turns into clouds, and then it's pushed back down again by the, the star forces that keep stuff on Earth. We get rain and hail and such, and it keeps going round and round like some kind of water cycle. The seasons go around once a year, and we don't know exactly why, but it definitely has to do with the motion of the stars. Like some are wet or dry, hot or cold, and that influences.
I mean, if you want to get technical, phenomena involving the solar system, sure. So if that's what he means by that, but I don't think that's what it is. The dry star, hot star, cold star, wet star.
The climate when they move, especially Saturn. He always soaks the place going by. He's a freak, like actually.
What?
Oh, I almost forgot the dog star. This guy's nuts. It kindles the sun's vapors, and when it rises, the ocean gets upset, wine ferments, and stagnant waters are set in motion. And
By dog star, does he mean Sirius, as in like Canis Major? I don't even know.
there's a creature called the Oryx in Egypt, and when the dog star goes up, they look at it and they sneeze out of worship. It also makes dogs go rabid, hence the name. But the
course.
stars and the seasons they create
So not the constellation. Okay.
have profound effects on nature, and it's not just the weather changes that do it. Some flora and fauna have weird links to the heavens. Pelagium blooms right on the winter solstice, even when hung up to dry in the house, and heliotrope follows the sun even when it's cloudy. The moon makes oysters bigger and ants lazier, and diseases in the eyes of livestock
It makes ants like...
will grow and diminish based on its phase. That's just a few examples. Hey, let's talk about the winds. The ancient Greeks have published a lot of great observations about the winds. Those were warish, disconnected times, which makes their work all the more impressive. Nowadays, in this great peace, every shore of this sea welcomes Romans. And what are we doing? When's the last time we sent anybody out to investigate this world with inquiry in their heart? Plenty of expeditions, sure, but that's just because you got some shit to sell. Rather than pursue science that could benefit all of mankind, you're hawking olives in Byzantium just to watch your abacus go up. Greed. But anyway, how many winds are there? The ancients recognized 4, but that's clearly not enough. The next generation overcorrected, brought it up to 12, and shit got messy and elegant. So today, us modern folk take the middle of the road with a nice even 8 total. 2 for each quarter of the heavens, and they've got a bunch of fun names. And
like winds and directions, like trade winds or the westerlies or easterlies. I was thinking of wind in the context of by atmospheric winds due to air pressure, or like solar wind, which is different types of wind. Okay, this is
yeah, if we wanted to add in the old reject winds, we could. And there's even a couple extra secret winds only recognized by a select few. Plus, there's certain winds that only blow in certain regions of the world, but, you know, broad strokes, it'll do you fine. These winds each blow at their various allotted times of the year, and the winter ones make for particularly rough seas. In former times, pirates were compelled by the fear of death to rush into death and to brave the winter ocean. Now we are driven to it by avarice. Direction isn't the only difference between the winds, though. They can all be characterized by their temperature, their moisture, and the kind of weather they tend to bring. Volturnus is dry, Septentria brings snow and hail, Auster is sultry, Aquilo is the most healthy, real motley crew, those winds.
I wonder if this was indeed the case, if wind power would be more popular than it actually was, maybe more predictable.
Well, while those guys are generally pretty calm, we must also consider the sudden, violent gusts we call storms. Storms are self-contained events that come in a few flavors themselves, like Eknephius, which brings thunder and lightning, or Typhon, which doesn't. Certain storms also give
Typhon related to typhoon? I don't actually know.
Rise to whirlwinds, which are these giant, loud pillars of wind and moisture that destroy everything in their path. They are so dense that they can actually support themselves on the ground, and if they happen over the sea, they suck up the water as they go. Thunderstorms.
Water spouts. I know about the feet on the ground, though.
Storms produce lightning, and lightning is crazy. It has this unique property where it can damage things on the inside while leaving the outside unharmed.
I'm sorry. No, outside not at harm. I was thinking like if that was his attempt at observing electrocution, but no.
It can empty casks of their wine without breaking the vessel itself, and it can melt gold and silver without burning the bag they're in. One time, a noblewoman named Marcia was struck by lightning while pregnant, and while the baby got fried, she herself survived without injury. Many people believe that
sounds like some urban legend.
When lightning strikes a man, it can be used to predict his future.
Good.
Are kind of sort of left up to
that platforming dangerous ideas does not welcome to.
Well, no. Now we're talking. Bates. Oh, go back and use the bathroom.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the first of a series of anti-debates on Kainos. Today we'll be taking on the topic of truth with Michael Shermer and Destiny. My name is Stephanie Lepp, and as the creator of this manifestation of the anti-debate, I'm going to give a quick introduction to the anti-debate and to our participants, and then I will hand it back to our facilitator and host of Kainos, Alexander Biner, to take it away. So with that, zooming out for a moment, you might ask, what would it look like if a debate were focused on not on one participant defeating the other, but on everyone gaining a more comprehensive view of the topic of debate. Well, the anti-debate is one humble answer to that question. It's a new and evolving and open source format for debate where participants build on each other's insights so that greater complexity can emerge. The term anti-debate was coined by effective altruist William McCaskill as an alternative to traditional debate, which would focus on seeking truth rather than defending sides. The idea was then popularized by friend and philosopher Peter Limburger, who imagined how anti-debates could transform the 2020 US presidential election. And as a producer and storyteller devoted to expanding hearts and minds, I then ran with the idea. In short, I researched a variety of dialogue and debate practices from Socratic dialogue to Oxford debate to Bohmian dialogue. I cobbled together a draft format, conducted trial runs, and came out with a V1 anti-debate that Alexander Beiner is now going to remix for all of you. To be clear, the anti-debate is not anti-debate. It actually starts out like a traditional debate with opening statements and rebuttals, but then it doesn't stop there. The difference is it goes further, right? It's like, thank you for clarifying your different perspectives. Now that you've put your ingredients on the table, it's time to make something new. So what you're about to hear is the first of a series of episodes by Kainos. Today's topic is truth, and specifically, to what extent does platforming dangerous ideas serve truth? So arguing for a greater extent, like, let's get all ideas on the table, is Michael Shermer. Michael is a writer, historian of science, executive director of the Skeptics Society, and founding publisher of Skeptic magazine. Shermer was called by Neil deGrasse Tyson a beacon of reason in an ocean of irrationality. And he's about to publish a book called Truth, What It Is, How to Find It, and Why It Still Matters. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
And arguing that platforming dangerous ideas does not necessarily or inherently serve truth is Stephen Bennell, aka Destiny. Stephen is a political commentator, a debater, and a streamer. He has millions of followers across platforms because he is willing to engage anyone on any topic in rigorous, good faith conversation, and he is willing to upgrade his positions in the face of new information, which is a rare and precious thing in our online public discourse. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
And our facilitator today is Alexander Beiner. He is an author, a journalist, and facilitator focused on bringing transformative ideas from the margins of culture into the mainstream. And he is the founder of Kainos, a creative studio helping people make sense in times of upheaval and imagine new futures. So, with that, I'm going to hand it to you, Alexander.
Mark is a good tanker of
Thank
wine.
you very much, Steph. And yeah, Michael and Stephen, thank you for doing this. This is going to be a very
Right, it doesn't do
hopefully
much damage.
unusual style of debate. And certainly my hope is that we can enter some new territory, some new intellectual territory through it. So, just to give a little bit of context around how we're going to be moving forward. So Steph mentioned my work and focus over the last decade or so has been around finding ways through the culture wars, drawing on insights from psychology, philosophy, and personal development skills. Before Kainos, I was one of the founders of Rebel Wisdom, and so we
pretty good.
really focus on that area. Really, I'd say at the peak of a different era of the culture wars, and started in 2017. And I'm also trained as a counselor and facilitator, so I do this kind of work around the world, helping people to have difficult conversations as well.
That's pretty strong. Illidan's pretty busted.
Mentioned this format is partly experimental, based on a lot of partly based on a lot of different strategies.
Bad, but I'm a little hesitant
My
about this
take,
calm.
my spin on it, because it is also an open source process, and the hope that people pick it up and run with it in many
Illidan.
ways. I am drawing a lot on
Fudge
cognitive science
and
Mike's
Erexar.
work on moral foundations theory,
Equally
the work of
fudge.
John Vervaeke, who's a cognitive scientist at the University of Toronto. If you're watching, you don't need to know that in detail, but I'm mentioning it because I think it's important to give a bit of context as to the intellectual underpinnings of what we're doing, and to kind of let's say position myself somewhat and how I
It's pretty
approach,
sick.
practices or processes like this. I think that my research in this area and
I'm not gonna have a real
facilitation
answer
area
for him.
to kind of two main conclusions at the moment. The first one is that we believe what we believe because of who we are, and we post-rationalize it later. And I think there are exceptions to that, but I think largely there is strong research in neuroscience and psychology and sociology to suggest that that is likely the case. And I think one way I find it useful to think about this, and it relates to what we're doing here today, is that by doing that we create a frame through which we view the world, view reality. And I'm borrowing a metaphor from John Vervaeke here, because I think it's very useful. That frame, of course, dictates what we see and what we don't see, what facts are relevant, what facts aren't relevant. And so the idea with processes like this is to ask, well, what if the frame is, if not entirely wrong, then certainly limited? How do we start seeing reality more clearly? Well, there are lots of different ways that we can, what's called break frame. So deep experiences, travel, psychedelics, which is one of my areas of interest, and really deep conversation that takes us somewhere new, which is what this is. And so if we can break from our frame, as Vervaeke describes it, I'm holding a pair of glasses, we're not looking through our frame, but we're looking to our frame. Why do I think what I think? So it's a kind of metacognition, and that's also something I'm inviting you guys both to play with in this. That's kind of part of the point. And I would say finally, to do that, one of the skills I think we need to embody more than anything else is curiosity. So we move from a sense of certainty into a sense of openness. I also want to caveat that I am not a relativist when it comes to truth. I think there is such a thing as truth, and I think that we can reach truth together better than in any other way. I don't believe every perspective is equal, and if that were the case, there would be no point in debating anything, anti or otherwise. So, format-wise, I will take us through the format as we go, very briefly. We will start almost like a traditional debate where each of you will give your position on this question, but we have a bit of a twist because you're going to give a personal story first as to your feelings and your kind of how your perspective develops, and then get into the perspective itself. And again, the question is to what extent is platforming dangerous ideas serves truth? Please feel free to. There's a bit of a kind of twist in there. What is a dangerous idea? Obviously, is implicit in that. So please don't shy away from critiquing the question. So before we go to opening statements, my final invitation to you is, can we here not just think in public, but grow in public and actually see where our perspectives start to move and change. So we shall see. There we go. So first off, Destiny, if you could give us firstly your story, your personal story, and then your position around this question. Again, to what extent does platforming dangerous ideas serve truth?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Catholic household, went to a Catholic grade school, went to a Jesuit high school, and I would say probably around 15, 16 years old, I was kind of on the way to becoming an atheist. Obviously, as an atheist, I'm a little bit biased, but I would say that any person that is a reasonable and sound mind, when you start asking enough questions, you kind of inevitably start to tend towards or trend towards a more critical direction that makes it really hard to hold on to your spiritual beliefs, I would say, at least in any kind of like formal, organized way. One thing, I guess, is part of the inevitable journey towards atheism in the late 2000s as a young man. I kind of started reading Ayn Rand. I was like a hardcore libertarian. I identified as an objectivist, and You know, I remember campaigning for Ron Paul and everything else, and as part of this kind of like journey, I watched a show called Penn and Teller's Bullshit.
You know,
I hope most of you are familiar with, but I'm pretty sure I watched every episode of the first 3 seasons of this
I've
show.
dug deep.
I mean, I loved it. It was an entertaining show.
This is another one of those.
It fed me a lot of
Just
like interesting ideas, critical ways to look at the world, and then through Penn Jillette, listening to him speak, I found out that magicians have this reputation for being these like spiritual debunkers, going all the way back to Houdini. And you know, as a person growing up, libertarian, free speech was a huge thing. Watching, you know, Penn and Teller do their thing on their show, I started watching random videos on the internet. One guy I came across that I thought was
This guy's stupid.
was James. I want to say Randy Fine. James Randi. Yeah, James Randi, who did basically, I think the ultimate culmination of his show. He was a guy who used to be a magician, a stage magician, not real magic, and he also would kind of like go on in his career to debunking people. And I think it ultimately culminated in like $1 million challenge where he would bring different spiritualists or psychics or telekinetic power users onto his show, and he would do clever little things to kind of expose that, well, I don't think that this trick is actually authentic, or rather, I don't think your powers are authentic, I think it's a trick. I think probably one of the most famous videos was, I think James Heydrich was his name, where it was a guy who would use telekinetic powers to move pages in phone books around or pencils on desks or whatever, and Randy would, you know, pour some styrofoam around it and say, well, see if we can do it again, and the guy obviously can't because he's just blowing to kind of like trick the audience. And yeah, you know, watching this kind of stuff, I would say when I was younger, I say younger, but really all the way up to my mid-late 20s, in my mind, this is like the ultimate version of freedom of speech. You have bad ideas, you've got anybody going on stage to show these bad ideas, and then you've got other people who are skeptical, and then they debunk those ideas. And I'm like, oh, well, this is cool. This is a system that works. I would say now, at the age of 37, after COVID, after doing politics, after doing debates, when I look back on things like that show, now one of the things I wonder is, what did I gain watching this? Like, was this an idea that needed to be debunked? Like, I think it was cool to watch it happen. I'm sure there was at least one person maybe whose mind was changed, but now I'm kind of thinking, like, did I really believe that telekinetic powers were a thing, that somebody who was wise, who could think critically, who could do research, that they needed to invest their time into debunking that idea? How many hours in the day should I spend watching telekinetic powers, psychic powers, spiritual powers being debunked? And that's, yeah, I guess that'll kind of be the lead into where I'm at right now today when I try to think about, you know, what does it mean to have freedom of speech or to platform dangerous ideas or to fight against people who are propagating lies or misinformation.
Sucks.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great. Why don't you do something, Marion? Oh, no.
Well, actually, Steph, what do you think? Because this is part of our experiment. Should we go straight into the...
Good feed, good feed.
The idea, yeah, was to mix it up. I think it's nice to start with the personal story before getting into the mood.
Let's do that. So we'll invite Michael then, if you can give your personal story about this topic.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. Yeah, that was a fascinating account there. Destiny, a lot of overlap with myself. I wasn't raised in a religious home, but I became religious in high school. I was born again evangelical Christian. I went to Pepperdine University to study theology and so on. So I took it all pretty seriously, and then I went off to graduate school and then became an atheist. And I became sort of a born-again atheist, going around knocking on people's doors, telling them I take back what I said earlier about God. And at Pepperdine, everybody was reading Atlas Shrugged. And I thought, what is that? I mean, this thing. And I finally read it, and it's like, oh my God, this is great stuff. So I went through, like you, my objectivist stage for a while and all that. For me, though, I took a turn more toward science and skepticism and rationality rather than more political issues or religion. And so what I'm interested in is really the truth. What should I believe about anything? And my background is, you know, in the sciences, social sciences, and then history.
What I do.
So I've kind of have a large, big picture perspective, you know, of how often we get it wrong. And so I start with the, you know, the principle of fallibilism. We might be wrong. Vertican principle that we're not special, that I'm not special, I might be wrong also. So to me, the importance of free speech is, because you might be wrong, so you got to talk to other people. Anyway, in 1992, we founded Skeptic Magazine. Each issue has a particular theme to it, like one on race, one on trans, and one on crime and punishment. Every quarter, we take on some particular issue, and we want to know what's the truth about it. And often, we don't know what the truth is, so I have to publish multiple perspectives that I actually seek out. Like we did one on abortion. So I'm pro-choice, but I sought out and got somebody who's pro-life. Give us your best arguments, and she did, and it was great, because some of those issues are not resolvable, they're not soluble in the scientific sense because they have so much gray area in between. When does life begin? Well, depends on how you define it, and pro-life people define it differently than pro-choice people. So it's just from the very beginning we're going to get different perspectives. And that tells us something about for truth. And then finally, I write some editions to the magazine. The latest book is on this topic, truth, what it is, how to find it, why it still matters. So I'm still searching, and I think I'm just going to be searching until the lights are out, including on that particular topic. Where do I go when the lights go out? And the answer is I don't know, and you don't either. Nobody knows. If there's a life after. So, but in that case, I better make the best of this life, and that's what I've tried to do.
Brilliant, thank you. I know, but I'm not telling anyone. So
you got the secret. We'll publish it in Skeptic.
We'll have to wait to the entire end of the anti-debate to hear that one.
So thank you, Michael, for that. And so, Stephen, if you would like to give your position on the topic now.
Yeah, so I'm kind of taking this from a broader, freedom of speech perspective, because I feel like when we talk about platforming, rough ideas or offensive ideas or ideas that some people wouldn't want platformed, ultimately we're having a discussion at the end of the day on freedom of speech. And then to start this off, I would say that whether we're aware of it or not, I think that most people have an instrumental view of things, such that there is a thing that exists, and this thing exists because it serves some other purpose.
No.
And I would argue that even truth, to some extent, fits the bill on that. So the reason why we gather truth, why we try to find out what's truthful, say through a process like science, is so that we can take that truth and then leverage it through a process called technology, and then through that process we create things that enrich our lives. You can see this when we go out to gather truthful things. Usually we have some kind of end in mind. Medical research starts with the idea of making people healthier. Physics research starts with the idea of getting a better understanding of the universe, and then this could manifest in so many technologies. Generally, our searches for truth aren't random. They're usually in a particular direction, with us trying to gather some information that will hopefully enrich our lives in some way. Obviously, there's a quadrillion different ways you can analyze speech, but I'm kind of looking at 3 different prongs when I'm looking at what do you need to have a good free speech environment. The first prong that I have is you need to have an environment where people feel like they can speak freely, obviously. So this might be free from government laws saying you can't say a bad thing about a politician. This might be free from a social media platform that can ban you for any reason if they don't like what you say. This might be free from family or cultural influence where people will ostracize you if you say a particular thing. You need some general amount of freedom in these domains in order to you can speak it and have an idea be said. The second part is you have to have the ability for other people to hear you to speak. There are no private languages. You can't utter words into a wall and expect you to accomplish anything. The whole purpose of speech is to be heard by another mind. If nobody can hear or understand what you're saying, then there's really no point to you even speaking. And then the third prong is I think that you need a framework where you can hold people who are lying, people who are acting in bad faith accountable, so that these people don't overwhelm your system and kind of hijack it and use it for their own personal gain to the detriment of everybody else. I usually find that when you're looking at these prongs, different political groups will overemphasize different prongs. So liberals tend to overemphasize the first. Now, if you're having a conversation on law, obviously we're usually talking about just the government banning freedom of speech. I've heard liberals say, well, as long as the government isn't banning, a particular type of speech, it doesn't matter if every single social media platform uses the First Amendment right. And while that's true, in practice, it's not really true.
You have mom.
Speech.
Daddy's a little busy, son.
And then for the second prong, I think conservatives tend to overemphasize that, where Conservatives seem to think that every single person should be unbanned on every single platform, and as long as you can hear every single thought and word and sound and everything at the same time, that now we have like a good freedom of speech environment. And sometimes I think that they overfocus on that, and they have no concept of any type of speech should be banned. And this is for a myriad of reasons that we might get into later. And then nobody really pays much attention to the third prong because I think it's a little bit scary and uncomfortable. The idea that somebody can censor some speech, or the idea that there's some framework by which there are some people that just shouldn't be allowed to participate in a free speech environment. But I think that when you have any of these individual prongs that fail, any of the three prongs that fail, I think that your environment is basically completely and totally nullified for the purposes of having, a free speech, good conversation. If you destroy the first prong and you have no free speech, then obviously you have a single authoritarian entity that can determine what is or isn't spoken about in the public discourse. I think it's self-evident why that's bad. You don't want a single person to tell you what you can or cannot say for obvious reasons I don't really get into. On the second prong, without the ability to hear people speak, there's just no speech happening, right? One person talking to you is a conversation. Two people talking at you, might be an outing with friends. 100 people in a room screaming at each other is not a free speech environment. Nobody knows what's being said. No ideas are being communicated. It might as well be nobody speaking if there's 100 people speaking at the same time. And then the third prong, if you have no ability to hold liars accountable or to get rid of people who are just acting in pure and obvious bad faith, then I think you overwhelm any speech platform so much that there is no true, honest, good discourse happening anymore. And unfortunately, I think we're in the world right now where that third prong has kind of failed. I think that we've kind of spent, especially over the past, I don't remember how many years it's been for COVID, right? 7 years now, I guess, especially in like this kind of like COVID, post-COVID world. I feel like we have lost so many good conversations. I feel like we've lost so many, there's like these mines, these treasure troves of conversations we could have had about, COVID is obviously the most immediate example. Did we open schools too late? Should we have ever closed the schools? What should lockdowns have looked like? We have had none of those conversations publicly. Instead, it's all focused on whether or not Anthony Fauci was making billions of dollars by telling us not to buy masks. I think there's a super fascinating conversation to be had about vaccines. And, to borrow from Alexander, I actually think, or is it Alexei? I don't know your first name to be said, but I think that intuitively, I think a lot of us actually have more agreement there than not. I think that everybody would be for a mandated vaccine on a disease that was latent for 2 weeks and then killed you. I think everybody would say, okay, you need to be vaccinated against that. I'm not going to die. I don't think anybody would want a mandatory vaccine for a sudden cold that you have to get every 2 weeks. So I think we all agree, like, roughly on the principles. We just have to figure out, like, what is the actual defining line on it. But instead, we're talking about whether or not COVID vaccines, make you magnetic, or what spike protein detoxer you need to buy in order to clear your system of the horrible mRNA spike vax particles or whatever. And it's just, there are so many people that have an extractive relationship with our free speech environment where they come in, they sell sensationalist ideas, they make a ton of money doing it, and then there's no accountability for those people. So we spend all of our time, from the smarter people, either disengaging completely because they don't want to waste their time with the horrible conversations, or fighting against obvious misinformation from obvious bad faith actors who have no engagement or regard for the truth, who also have no accountability mechanisms, so they can just continue to lie with impunity over and over and over and over and over again. And I think that's a failed speech environment. You're keeping track of the time? What's my timer right now?
You're about on time for that.
Okay, yeah.
Want to make a final
yeah.
point.
So yeah, I guess in summary, I would say that freedom of speech is an instrument. It's a tool that we use to arrive at better conclusions. It gives us a better understanding of the world, and it gives us a direction to move towards, ideally to make life better for all of humanity. And when we don't have the ability to hear honest people making good conversation in a publicly accessible forum where anybody theoretically could participate, when we lose that, either through a lack of the freedom to speak, a lack of the ability to hear, or a lack of the ability to get rid of bad faith actors, once we've lost that, the entire environment kind of collapses in on itself, and we have a facade of a free speech environment where bad faith actors have just hijacked the system to sell us, entertainment masked as truth or news.
Great. Thank you for that, Justin. And guys, I'm just going to switch the format here on the other side. I'm just going to check if the rest of your live streams for Instagram. So you can see it. It's a swap. Let's say one person. So Michael, it'll be speaker view now. Michael, if you would like to give your position on the topic, please.
Ugh, roasted.
Those are all good points, Destiny. I guess I would start by saying, Jennifer and Stephanie and Alexander, the idea of a anti-debate is great. You know, I've done dozens of debates in my career, and mostly I'm trying to win. I'm not engaging with this other person, mostly theists, talking about God, but other topics, to find out what I should believe about this, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to win, and that's how debates are normally structured, like the Oxford Union debates and the Intelligence Squared open to debate people. They have the audience vote ahead of time what they believe, and then at the end you vote they take a vote to see how many people were swayed by your position.
Yes.
And I've won all 5.
He has his
but
boy part still.
Closer to the truth.
He has his boy part still. They're all going to do that.
To win, and I like to win because I'm competitive. So I really like this idea. In fact, I've taken to wanting to do more presentations than debates because
I'm not going outside right now.
Okay, now the problem with the resolution here, to what extent does platforming dangerous ideas serve the truth? Well, you identified it already. What constitutes a dangerous idea? So I wrote a book about this called the most famous case study of this Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes and the famous 1992 case of Schenck versus the United States. In which he concluded that the most stringent protection of free speech does not protect a man from falsely shouting fire in a panic. The question in every case is whether the words used are used in
because
such
if you read your fucking messages,
such a nature as to create a clear and present danger
I noticed.
that they will bring about the substantive evils that Congress has a right to prevent. It is a question of proximity and degree. Okay, so what was this clear and present danger that the United States government had to protect us from? Who was this guy, Schenck?
I told you I was trying.
I
told you I was trying to do stuff.
Schenck
And I can't look at your messages.
Party of Philadelphia, who during the
because you wouldn't respond
in the First World War objected to the draft, that is conscription, because conscription, if you think about it, as he says, is a form of slavery. The government is taking control of you and your body for a period of time, and you have to go. And if you don't, you're a deserter and you go to prison. And so they printed flyers and handed them out to young men saying, basically, here, I'll just read one portion. A conscript is little better than a convict. He's deprived of his liberty and of his right to think and act as a free man. A conscripted citizen is forced to surrender his right as a citizen and become a subject. Okay? Now, you can debate that, but he has a good point, and he convinced not a few young men that they were not going to go into the draft. They didn't want to go over to Europe and risk being killed. All right? That seems like an all-American thing, but, there's one of these conflict issues that we're talking about here. Should he be free to disperse flyers making that case? Of course, because one person's dangerous idea, like telling young men that the draft is a form of slavery, is another person's freedom, freedom idea, right? Defense of freedom. And so basically my argument is based along those lines. The moment you set up a precedent that we're only going to ban the dangerous ideas, or more modern parlance, hate speech. Okay, we're in favor of free speech, but we just don't like the hate speech. Oh, yeah? Who's going to decide what's hate speech? You? Me? Are you and I going to form a committee? And then what criteria are used to censor certain speech? Ideas that I disagree with? Thoughts that differ from your thoughts? Then 3, it's not just the right of the speaker to speak, but for listeners to listen. When colleges deplatform speakers or students succeed in silencing a speaker through the heckler's veto, the right of the audience to hear the speaker's ideas is violated. We might be completely right, but still learn something new in hearing what someone else has to say. We might be partially right and partially wrong, and by listening to other viewpoints, we stand corrected. We might be completely wrong, so hearing criticism and counterpoint gives us the opportunity to change our minds and improve our thinking. No one is infallible. In any case, whether right or wrong, by listening to the opinions of others, we have the opportunity to develop stronger arguments and build better facts for our positions. Okay, so that's kind of my summary of defense of free speech. Give some examples. Like in the 1990s, when I encountered the Holocaust deniers, I was, I was just sort of nosing around for skeptic. What are some new controversial? Here's these Holocaust deniers. They're on major television shows, and so I thought, okay, what are the